Hi, Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast. A fortnight away from the 2026 NFL draft taking place. I've already looked at the running backs and where their best landing spots, and as a result, what we might expect them to achieve, the leading running backs, that is. So in this piece, I'm going to do the same for wide receivers. So as I did with running backs, I will take a look at how the wide receivers drafted this decade have fared in their rookie seasons to establish a reasonable level of expectancy for this year's class. So, 49 wide receivers have been drafted in the first 50 picks of this decade's drafts. 11 of those recorded over 1,000 yards in their first season. Another 9 had over 900 yards. 4 more went over 800 yards, making it roughly half of those 49 having 800-yard plus seasons. So the 11 that went over 1,000 yards, in turn, where they basically ended up in order. The best of them was probably Jamar Chase, who was the first wide receiver taken with a fifth overall pick by Cincinnati. He recorded 1,476 yards and 13 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson just beat him for yardage with 1,490 yards, but he had 8 touchdowns in his rookie season. Behind them, Brian Thomas, the Jacksonville receiver, he had 1,330 yards and 10 touchdowns. And Malik Neighbors of the Giants had 1,367 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, they're the four in excess of 1,300 yards. The 1,200-yard guys were Lad McConkey, who had 7 touchdowns. Elijah Moore, remember him, still around, 9 touchdowns in his rookie season and 1,211 yards. They were the two that went over 1,200 yards. The 1,100-yard guys were Chris Olave, who only had 4 touchdowns in his rookie season. Brandon Ayuk, who had 10. And Garrett Wilson, who's like Olave, only had 4 touchdowns but went over 1,100 yards. The 1,000-yard plus guys were Jalen Waddle, C.D. Lamb, and Ted McMillan from last year, who had 7, 6, and 7 touchdowns respectively. So 8 of these were in the top wide receivers in their own, 5 wide receivers in their own draft, and 9 of them were taken in the first 25 picks of the draft. So when we look at this draft class, that historical pattern would indicate that those taken in the first 25 picks overall and the first 5 wide receivers taken are the ones to look for. Those who are in the top 25 and top wide receivers in the draft who are not on this list include Zay Flowers, 914 yards, Jordan Addison, 913, Devontae Smith, 916 yards, but less touchdowns than the two above. Jerry Jeudy had 909 yards, and then I won't go through the yardage, but I'll just run down who the others were. Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake London, Roma Dunze, Jahan Dotson, things haven't gone so well for him since that rookie year. Jalen Rieger, who could be the same set of him. Um, the unfortunate Henry Riggs. When I say unfortunate, you know what I mean. Read between the lines. Um, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kadarius Toney, Matthew Golden, 498 yards last year, but no touchdowns. Same with Toney, only had 584 yards and no touchdowns. Quentin Johnston, 440 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Jameson Williams, who things have improved for since his rookie year, but he only had 230 touchdowns and 3 touchdowns. That's all extrapolated across basically them playing a full 17 game slate. So if they played less than that, I've ramped it up, made it look like they played a 17 game schedule. You get what I'm saying. With the top 6 in that list all averaging over 50 yards a game, that makes 18 in total out of 27, or 2 out of 3 wide receivers taken in the first 25 picks, who were one of the first wide receivers taken in that draft, who had strong rookie seasons. And were only 4 of those 27 that fit that criteria being first season in brackets busts. That equates to 85% of them having decent first seasons. But what can we take from the top 18 listed is that landing on a team where you are pretty much assured of being the wide receiver 1 or 2 on that team is a huge factor in how they fare during their rookie season. On the flip side, only 4 of the 18 not taken in the first 25 overall, not being a top 5 wide receiver in their class, had over 900 yards in their rookie campaign, less than 25% strike rate in that group. So when we look at this year's class, we can expect 4 of the top 5 to have strong rookie seasons, as long as they go in the first 25 picks of this draft. And right now, I have 5 or 6 wide receivers who could go in the first round, 6 in the top 33 on my big board, with the next after that being number 52. The ones I'm talking about are Carnell Tate, Mackay Lemon, Jordan Tyson, Omar Cooper, Casey or Kevin Concepcion, and Denzel Boston. They're the 6 in this class who should expect to have by far the greatest chance of first season success. But which teams have clear vacancies at wide receiver 1 or 2 ahead of this draft, and thus present these 6 with the greatest hope of being big rookie season? Well, I would say Atlanta, Baltimore, Carolina, Cleveland, Las Vegas, Miami, New England, New Orleans, the New York Jets, and Washington are 10 teams that look most likely to offer that hope to this year's draft class. With Vegas seemingly set to use their first overall pick on Fernando Mendoza, they can be taken out of the 10 best landing spots for a top 25 wide receiver in this draft, top 25 picks overall. And Atlanta and New England do not have a top 25 pick either right now. So unless one of those 3 teams finds a way to get another pick in the top 25, that only leaves 7 teams as the best spots for these 5 or 6 wide receivers to go in round 1. The New York Jets have picks 2 and 16, and with Garrett Wilson being their only quality wide receiver ahead of this draft, there's room behind him for the wide receiver 2 to make hay with the Jets for maybe even 2 of them. Cleveland, they take the 6th and 24th picks, and Jerry Jeudy's the best wide receiver they currently have. So there might even be a path to wide receiver 1 open to a draft candidate. Washington have the 7th pick. Terry McLaurin is by far the best wide receiver, and nobody of wide receiver 2 level behind him on their depth chart. So again, there's an opening there. And for that, whoever ends up in Washington, if it's somebody in the first 25 picks, they've got the potential to take over from McLaurin longer term as he gets towards the end of his career. New Orleans hold the 8th pick, and the wide receiver 2 slot behind Chris Olave is there for a new wide receiver to take should the Saints take one this early. The same can be said for Miami as with Cleveland, who have pick 11. Indeed, they do not even have anybody as good as Jeudy on their roster. So the wide receiver 1 door is as wide open as it can be in Miami. Baltimore at 14 offer a clear wide receiver 2 vacancy behind Zay Flowers. Carolina at 19 have Ted McMillan, but Jalen Coker and Xavier Legette have far from established themselves behind McMillan as their wide receiver 2, so there's possible opportunity there. These these teams also offer the best chance to those taken after pick 25 or being the 6th wide receiver or later in this draft, especially if they're the first wide receiver taken by one of those teams in this draft. Other factors to consider is the quality of each team's quarterback and O-line, as this will determine how effective their pass offense is. Taking into account the wide receiver 1 or 2 spots available, both short and long term, plus the quality of quarterbacks and O-lines on the teams mentioned, I would rank the best openings from 1 to 10 as being the best place for a wide receiver to land in this draft being with the Washington Commanders. Jayden Daniels is one of the best young quarterbacks in the league, playing behind a settled and stout O-line. As I said earlier, McLaurin, he's going to be 31 at the start of next season, so initially the wide receiver 2 slot is open behind him, but in a season or 2, a drafted wide receiver could well inherit the wide receiver 1 position. And look what Jackson Smith-Njigba did when that window opened up to him with the departure of Metcalf and Lockett in Seattle. Number 2, the second best team, New England Patriots. If the Patriots sort out the left side of their O-line in terms of pass protection for Drake May at quarterback, the Pats' pass offense could go to the next level very quickly. Now, the Pats have 4 decent wide receivers and a solid tight end, but no receiver on their roster capable of putting together a 1,000-yard season. So this could present a fine opportunity for a drafted wide receiver to take that role on a team who could maximize their abilities. The third best landing spot is the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson may not be the running threat he was when he came into the league, but he's a greatly improved passing quarterback. And like Washington, the Ravens have a pretty good O-line in place. The path to wide receiver 1 is not open as long as Zay Flowers is around, but wide receiver 2 is certainly open to a drafted wide receiver. Fourth best landing spot, Las Vegas Raiders. Well, Kirk Cousins and/or Fernando Mendoza offer the chance of improved quarterback play behind a much improved O line. Brock Bowers is a tight end that is going to take a good chunk of the pie away from the wide receiver core, but with Trey Tucker being the best wide receiver right now, a newcomer could well at least compete for the wide receiver spot on this team from day one. Miami Dolphins, a new quarterback in Malik Morris, an O line that needs to improve significantly next season. However, no Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill means Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell stand between any new addition and the wide receivers one spot on this team. So, as I said earlier, the path to being their best wide receiver is wide open. It's just you're not landed on the best team from day one, but you're still going to get plenty of opportunity, I would suggest. Right, the sixth best team to land on would be the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young seems to have a firm grip on the starting quarterback role now, although this is an important year for him you know, as he comes towards the end of his rookie deal, for Carolina to decide whether they're going to offer him the big bucks beyond that. But he has yet to establish himself as an above average quarterback in the league, and needs a big season this season. Again, the O line looks pretty good in front of him. Tech McMillan had a fine rookie season. Jalen Coker showed how vulnerable Xavier Legette was to a challenge for the wide receiver two position last season. Neither of these guys has a look of a wide receiver who can get close to 1,000-yard season. So any new wide receiver added could fill that particular need for the Panthers. Seventh best team to land on. There are not many lists that they come up as seventh best in the Cleveland Browns. The Browns have made some free agent moves to upgrade an O line that certainly have plenty of room for improvement this off-season. The quarterback picture remains cloudy with a distinct chance of stormy weather in that area ahead. But any incoming wide receiver has Jerry Jeudy and Harold Fanning to compete with in order to be the best option for whoever that quarterback is. Eighth best team to land on, the Atlanta Falcons. Tua Tagovailoa and/or Michael Penix will have plenty to prove at quarterback for the Falcons this season, but will get to play behind another good O-line. Drake London bars the door to wide receiver one opportunities, and Kyle Pitts will take his share from tight end two. So question marks over the quarterback and possibly being the third best option that quarterback will look for may limit opportunities more than the previously mentioned teams. Ninth best opening would be with the New York Jets. Geno Smith may be a journeyman starting quarterback, but showed he can feed talented wide receivers behind a really good O line for the Seahawks. The Jets have a pretty good O line too to help him do likewise in New York. Garrett Wilson is locked in as their wide receiver one, but the wide receiver two spot is open, and maybe especially a slot receiver type like Mackay Lemon, Omar Cooper, or Casey Concepcion could thrive with the Jets. New Orleans are rounding out my top 10 landing spots. The Saints O line is a work in progress, and whilst he did well at the end of last season, Tyler Shugg has just 9 NFL starts behind him. But if he and the Saints can improve this coming season, then Chris Olave may be the biggest beneficiary. But a new wide receiver will pretty much walk into the wide receiver two spot on this team. So any of the teams above who make their first wide receiver move after pick 25, but before the end of the second round, would also make good landing spots for the next wave of wide receivers that include Jeremy Bernard, Zachariah Branch, Antonio Williams, Malachi Fields, Chris Brazell, Chris Bell, Elijah Sarrett, Dion Burks, Bryce Lance, Ted Hurst, DeZorn Striblin. You might want to throw Brennan Thompson in there as well. Any of them that land with any of these teams has got a shot in having a decent rookie season, but probably not as good as the guys that are going to go in the first 25 and be the first 5 wide receivers off this board. So that's how I see the wide receivers now. Back tomorrow with a similar piece on tight ends. See you soon.